Hello, on this video I'm going to show you how to read from a text file in C++, use the IFSTREAM class. And for that I'm going to create a new project, search for C++. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here. And now we're going to read from a file. But before we read from a file, we need to get the file first. So I'm going to go to the Solution Explorer and then right click on the project and open folder in File Explorer. The reason I do that is because I know this is the location where the files are running. And because of that, this location is the local folder for this program. So I'm going to right click, create a new text document. I'm going to call this test.txt. Double click to open, and I'm going to put some text over there just so we have something to read. So we're going to open this file right here. So when it comes to reading a file, you have three steps. Step number one is to actually open the file. Then number two, read from the file. And finally, number three, close the file. All right, so let's go for number one. So to open the file, I'm going to use something called the IFSTREAM. And then I'm going to give a name to the stream of the file that I want to open. So I'm going to name this my file. And then finally the file that I want to open. So I want to open the file called test.txt. So in order for me to use the IFSTREAM, I'm going to hover over and then show potential fixes. And I'm going to click on adds including IFSTREAM. And that adds line number 5 for me. And the other thing I need is the namespace standard. So I'm going to hover over again, show potential fixes, and then add using namespace standard. You can either do that or type it. I prefer doing that, so I type the least amount possible. So I open the file, then I read from the file, and then finally I close the file. Now, before I move on here to step number 2 and 3, I want to talk briefly about this string here. So that string only works if the file is specifically inside the same folder of the project. It only works if that file is located right here on this folder. But if this file is located somewhere else in your computer, you're going to need the entire path to that file. And to get a path to a file, it doesn't matter where it is. I'm going to right click and then copy path. So that gives me the entire path to this file right here. So I'm going to paste the file right here. But now we have a problem. And the problem is that the backward slash is a special character. It's called escape character. And the escape character puts a special meaning on the character right after that. So we have three options here to fix this problem. So the first option is to replace every single backward slash with 2 of them. So on my keyboard, I'm going to press Ctrl and the letter H to open the search and replace. And then I'm going to search for backward slash and replace with 2 backward slash. And then I'm going to select this entire line. And then on the drop down menu, I'm going to choose selection. And now I'm going to click on replace all. So what that does for me is just replace every single backward slash with 2 slashes. So this will work because now we have one escape character escaping the other escape character. In other words, it removed the meaning of a single backward slash. So that's your option number 1. So your option number 2 is to replace everything with forward slash. So that is going to work just as fine. And then finally, your last option is to use the raw string. And for that, I want to put back the way it was before. And to create the what's called the raw string, all I have to do is put the letter R here, and then inside the double quotes, I want to put a parenthesis and then close the parenthesis before the double quotes. So this creates a raw string. A raw string is a string that the characters inside have no meaning. In other words, this escape character here is not considered escape anymore. So these are your three options. Use whichever you want or whichever you think it's appropriate for you. The next step is to test if this worked, because maybe the path is wrong or the file doesn't exist or something. To test if the file is open, I'm going to use an if statement, and then I'm going to use the myFile.isOpen. So this is a function that returns true if the file is open. However, I'm going to negate this to say, hey, if the file is not open, I'm going to print a message. And then I'm going to exit the program with the exit failure. So this here only tests if the file was open appropriately. All right, so let's go for step number 2 now. So step number 2 is just to read something from the file. So in this case here, I'm going to read a string from the file. So I'm going to first declare a variable string. Then after that, I'm just going to read the string from the file. So to read the string, I'm going to put my file, which is the stream that I open right here on line 12. And then I'm going to just read a string from the my file. So line 21 places one string from the file into the str variable. And I want to just display the str here just to have a confirmation that what I'm reading is actually what's in the file. And the third step of this process is to close the file. So I'm going to use myFile.close. All right, and these are the 3 steps for reading a string from a file. So I'm going to run this program, and when I run, I see the AAA string here, and I'm going to open the file just to see that we actually have AAA here. So this is how you read one string from the file. But now, what if I want to read everything from the file? In other words, I want to read every single string from the file. After all, our file has a lot of strings. So what if I want to read every single string from the file? If that's the case, I'm going to use a loop right here. I'm going to use a while loop. And then I'm going to put this command inside the condition. And then finally, I'm going to put the cout right here inside the body of the loop. So with this command, it will run the loop until the end of the file, until we cannot read the file anymore. So this command reads one string and places that string into the str. Once it cannot read it anymore, this will be false, and then the while loop stops executing. So I'm going to run this program, and here I have all the contents of the file. So it displays everything. If you notice, I'm putting the end line here, and that's why you have one string in each line. But if I remove the end line and run it again, then I'm going to have one continuous string. Now, if you compare the file that we have with the output, you're going to notice that the file we have is somehow organized and has spaces. But when you just play everything together, it doesn't have space and it's not organized. The reason is because whenever you're reading strings from a file, it does not read the spaces. It just treats every single set of character as a single string. Now, this works great because you're going to have all the strings from the file. But what if you want every single character, including the spaces? If that's the case, then you need to read the file one char at a time. So I'm going to read now one char at a time. So I want to change the string to char, and instead of str, I'm going to put c, and I'm going to use a different function on the while here. So my file dot good, then I'm going to get a character, and I'm going to use a function called get. So my file dot get, and this function together with the stream, we return one character at a time. And here I'm going to display the character C just to see what happens. So this code will read every single character from your file, no matter what it is. So I'm going to run this program, and now you're going to see that what displays here on the console is exactly the same as you have right here in the file. So even the spaces gets displayed. So if you need everything from the file, one of your options is to read one character at a time. But now, what if we want to read one line at a time? I don't want one character anymore. I want the whole line. So to read the whole line, I'm going to do some modification here. So from char, I'm going to go back to the string, and I'm going to name this a line. The my file good will work for us as well. So I'm going to leave it here. And then finally, instead of get file, I'm going to use a function called get line. And then I'm going to put the stream name, my file, comma, the variable that I want the line to be stored in. So in this case, it's going to be line. Now, in order for this thing to work, you need to include the string here on the top. So I'm going to include the string. And now the get line works. So it must include the string. And then finally here, I'm going to just display the line. So when I do this, I display one line at a time. So I'm going to put a little string here so we know this is the entire line. Otherwise, it might get confusing. So I'm going to run this program. And now you can see that the whole line got displayed every time I call the loop. And this is exactly what we have on the file. So this code is reading one line at a time. So one interesting thing here, if you notice, is that the bottom one here is empty. After the F, it prints an empty line here. And the reason is because after the F on the file, there is a new line right here. So if you see the cursor is after the F. If I remove this by using the backspace of my keyboard, now the cursor grows right here in the top. I'm going to save this file, and then I'm going to run the program again, and we're going to see that this line here disappears. So I run again, and then we see that the program read all the way to the F and did not read anything anymore. So that tells us that the program reads until you have a new line, and it will read that line if that line has a new line as well. So you need to make sure that your last line doesn't have anything here, or if it has anything, you need to be aware of these kinds of behavior when it reads one line at a time. All right, so what if now we want to read the entire file? We want to read the entire file and start that thing on a single string. So to do that, we have a couple of options. My favorite option, which I think is the simplest one, is to use the read buffer function. So I'm gonna delete this code here, and I'm gonna call this string file content this time. Then I need to create a output string stream, and that is o string stream. I'm gonna call this ss, and then ss, I'm gonna use the stream that I opened on line 14, and then the dots reads buffer. Now, in order for this to work, you need to include the s stream. So I'm gonna add this. Then after I'll add line number 7, I can start using the O string stream. And then finally, I need to save the contents of the file to the file content string that I created. So file content equals ss dot the string. So this function here returns a string from the O string stream and stores everything on file contents. And now finally I can do one single cout with the file contents. With the O string stream, you have 3 commands and you read the entire file into one string only. So let me run this program. And here it is. You read the entire contents of the file into one single string. Now there are other ways to read the file, but these are the ones that I use the most, and these are the ones that I recommend you to learn as well. Alright, so that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.